Every parent has the desire for their children to listen to what they say, to respect their wishes, as often the parents have learned from their past experiences and know what their children should and should not do, and they have different ways of instilling these values in their children. One of those ways is through stories and fairy tales, and one of which is contained within the Fairy Tales of Remnant novel. Today we are going to talk about The Grimm Child, a tale that follows a brother and sister pair, Poppy, the older sister, and Oak, the younger brother, as they learn the hard way of what the consequences might be for disobeying their parents' wishes. The story starts off as Poppy and Oak are at the forest's edge, a forest that their parents had forbade them from entering, and Poppy is egging Oak on to do just that, calling him a coward and a crybaby for not wanting to go into the forest, Oak simply wanting to go home to respect his parents' wishes. Poppy getting a bit fed up, she decides to dart into the forest first. Not very far, only about 10 feet or so, but enough that the shadows hide her from view from her brother. She also hides behind a tree stump only to watch her brother squirm. And he does just that. He sits on the ground, hugs his knees to his chest, and starts to cry. All Poppy can think is that he's such a coward. But eventually Oak stops crying, and the hairs stand up on the back of Poppy's neck. She turns around and sees that the shadows seem a lot closer than what they once were. She quickly gets a bit of fear herself and runs out of the forest, but not too quick, and she is smart enough to hide her hands in her pocket to avoid showing her brother that they're shaking, and then eggs her brother on. See? There's nothing to be afraid of. There was no Grimm in there. Now your turn. You go into the forest. Oak still not wanting to go, Poppy threatens to not be his friend anymore, to never play with him again. Oak not wanting that scenario to occur, knowing how much he dislikes when Poppy goes and plays with her other friends and leaves him behind, he reluctantly agrees to her wishes, and he slowly approaches the forest. As he enters the forest and is cloaked in shadow, Poppy is waiting, expecting to hear him scream, but a scream never comes. Instead, she waits, and nothing. The forest is completely silent, and eventually she gets worried about her brother, so she decides to follow him into the forest. But as she enters this realm of shadow, it seems different than before, and she walks further and further into the forest, wondering where her brother is and if he would have even come this far into the forest. Eventually, she almost trips over him. He's huddled on the ground, his knees hugged to his chest once again, and Poppy almost yells at him. But instead, she just gently puts her arm around him and says it's time to go home. She realizes he's cold to the touch, and at the word home, he responds to her. He looks up, and she sees that his face is as pale as the bone of the Grimm. She hurries him back to the house and up into their room to avoid their parents seeing him. His skin is completely pale, there are dark circles under his eyes, and Poppy can only think that he must have been scared so much that he can't utter a word. She puts him to bed, goes and eats dinner quickly with her family, and then goes up and joins him. She goes to sleep as well, a bit thankful that her parents will never know that they disobeyed their wishes. But later in the night, Poppy wakes up and looks over to see that Oak isn't in his bed anymore. She gets a bit concerned and decides to find out where Oak went. As she walks out of her room, she sees that the door to her parents' room is slightly ajar. Oh, he must have just gone to sleep with their parents. He does that sometimes, so I'm sure that's it. She goes over and calls to her parents, but receives no response. As she pushes open the door, she is met with a sight that horrifies her. Her parents are sitting up in their bed, their skin completely pale and their eyes lifeless. She didn't even have to approach to know that they would be cold to the touch. Her parents were now dead. She screams and runs to her neighbor's house where her friend is and finds a similar scene in their kitchen, both of her parents lying lifeless on the ground. She runs up to the room where her friend sleeps and found her brother there, except he had changed. His hair had gone as white as snow, and red veins were creeping up his neck onto his face. His eyes were now completely black. She once again runs to the other houses in her village and finds the same sight over and over again, quickly realizing that she is now in a ghost town. She knows she has to leave, runs back to her house to try to find her suitcase, pack her things, and get out of there quickly. But as she reaches under her bed, she grabs onto something cold. She didn't even have to look to know what it was that she was grabbing onto, but she pulled it out nonetheless and saw that it was a body of another one of the villagers. She then got a chill down her spine and realized what had happened. She ran over to her mirror and saw that her eyes were completely black, her hair had turned completely white, and the red veins were now creeping up her neck as well. She was already dead. This is where the story ends off, and as far as cautionary tales go for children disobeying their parents, this is pretty much the extreme of it. As what happened to Poppy and Oak as they ventured into the forest is they met a Grimm. They were met by the Chill. This is a Grimm that can possess humans, much like the Geist Grimm can possess inanimate objects, rocks, ice, and dust crystals as we saw in Volume 7. The Chill can possess humans. And though the Chill is a very real Grimm in the world of Remnant, as recorded by Ozpin's notes, the effects of the Chill are a little bit exaggerated, at least from what he could gather from talking with experienced huntsmen and huntresses. When the Chill is possessing a human host, they cannot talk or act normally as Poppy did in the story, and the possession only lasts for a few minutes at most, so it seems very unlikely that a Chill would be able to take out an entire town in a single night, often relying on the element of surprise and the unwillingness of people to kill a friend or loved one until they are certain that there is no way to save them from the Chill, thus giving the opportunity for the Chill to take advantage of that and take out the host's friends and allies. The appearance of those possessed by the Chill seems also a little bit exaggerated, taking inspiration from a different tale about a white witch in the woods. The pale skin and hair, the darkened eyes, and the red veins seeming to take inspiration from that fairy tale, but have been adapted into this one and have become so widespread that it almost seems canon to the story. And Ozpin theorizes that this is likely from the human desire to see something evil as different from themselves, that it would be easily recognizable, that it can't be something that can blend in with the regular populace. There seems to also be a game that has been played or popularized because of this story in the world of Remnant. Something akin to, I guess our real-world equivalent would be Werewolf, but here it is called the Chill, where one of the people or one of the members playing the game is possessed by the Chill and everyone else playing has to find out who it is before everyone else is taken out. So regardless of how this story appears, it seems there is always a phrase that is continuous throughout all of them. She must have caught a chill in the forest. This story being popular for campfire stories or before bedtime, and as I mentioned before, particularly in parents who have disobedient children. This story may be a bit exaggerated at times, but there is definitely truth within it. The chill exists in the world of Remnant, and parents often know best when talking about the world that is plagued by monsters. Children should definitely respect their boundaries and should be careful when wandering out at night or into unfamiliar territory. So this has been the Grimm Child, one of the fairy tales contained within the Fairy Tales of Remnant book. I plan to cover each of the fairy tales contained within here in their own video, hopefully releasing one a day until I've covered all of them, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on the Grimm Child. I'm covering them a bit out of order as which ones pique my interest. I'll probably go over the 8 new fairy tales and then the 4 familiar ones, the Girl in the Tower, the 4 Maidens, etc. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are down in the comments below. What fairy tale do you want me to cover next, or move further up the list? I already have an idea which one I'm going to cover next, but still, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with all of the fairy tales that are coming out. The music polls that are currently going on. We are now in Volume 6, so I'll leave a link in the description below to the Volume 6 songs poll and the Volume 6 scores poll. Also make sure to check out the Phoenix Festival tournament that is currently in round 7 in the singles category and the semi-finals for the teams category. So make sure you go and vote for who you think would win in each of those matches. Join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7. Also join our Discord server linked in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.